Okay guys, we're going to bias this amp today. Did you see that? Did you see that intro? I just made it. Kind of proud of it. Okay, so today's video is going to be a follow-up on the video I made the other day about this head, the Housefire head. If you didn't watch it yet, you should go watch it because it's an interesting story. But like I said in that video, I bought this amp back from the guy I sold it to. It's been like 8 or 9 years since I did all the work to this and biased it. It would be a good idea probably to check the bias. I mean, it might be good, it might be exactly the same, but it could have floated one way or the other, and it's not a bad idea to just check it and adjust it if it needs it. And I figured I'd make a video about that because if you're moderately good at electronics and if you've done some stuff, wiring and soldering and done things, you can do this. But I will give you the warnings just like everybody else will on the internet and on YouTube and everything else. There are voltages inside this chassis that can and will kill you. Voltages that 400-500 volts, like many times more than what's coming out of your wall outlet. And if you were to touch it, it'll zap you good. And if you were to touch it with both hands, it can go through you and pass through your body and stop your heart. Like the voltages in an amp can kill you. And I'm not advising you, anybody, to open up an amp. I'm advising you to not. If you are not comfortable with it, I mean, if you want to do it yourself, do the research, because when I started with this, I had done a lot of soldering and wiring, and for all of my life, I've been kind of piddling with that. I had never worked on amps, so I did the research first before I ever opened up an amp. I did lots and lots of reading and watched a lot of videos and just knowing what to do and what not to do. And I bought a bias probe from Yugedrums, which is really nice. There's lots of different probes. There's several companies that make different kinds of probes. I like the Yugedrums probe because you just plug your tube into it and then plug that into the socket, and you're not sticking the leads of your voltmeter in your multimeter inside the amp. I wanted to just avoid that part of it. I could, but this makes it so much easier. The only thing you're having to do inside of there is if you have to adjust the bias, you just take a long, small flathead screwdriver and get it to the bias pot in there and turn it one way or the other. That's all you're doing. You're not touching anything else inside the amp. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll show you the process of taking it all apart, and then I set it up here on the cabinet, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so first thing I always do when I do this, I put it on the cabinet because it just gets it. I don't want to do it on the floor or anything. A lot of places make like little racks, little stands to put the chassis on, real nice, and they're real nice. And but I don't do this enough to spend the money on that, and also I'd have to find somewhere to put it and whatever. And I rarely ever do this. I don't do this for a living or anything. And so I always put a towel down on the cabinet, and that's to protect not only the amp itself, but also to protect the cabinet's Tolex. It just puts a nice little barrier there so I don't scratch the Tolex. Or you got to watch when you pull these out, the corners of these face plates and back plate. If you snag that on something, it'll bend right up and put a big kink in it. Ask me how I know that. So first step, I'm going to take the screws for this grill off. And like I said in the other video, I really like this grill because the JCM 800s back in the day, this is what they had, like this zinc plated grill. And the newer 2203 reissues They just paint this grill black, which looks fine enough, you know, but I mean, I like it to look like the way it used to look, and I don't know why they wouldn't. Anyway, so there's that. I remember this now. I had put some stick-on felt here so that it wouldn't rattle, because I think it rattled, and that's why I did that. So, now at this point, there are 4 screws down here on the bottom, which hold this chassis into this head shell. So you want to get each one of them one at a time. And so at this point, we have not yet exposed the stuff that will shock you and kill you yet. It's all up inside of there. But as soon as I go to pull this out, that stuff is out in the open. And I haven't had this amp on recently, since several days ago. But I mean, it could still be holding some charge in there, and you don't want to find that out with your body, you know. So what I do now is I just grab it by the transformer and this transformer, and these are safe to touch. There we go. Okay. I'll sit that down on the floor. It's safe to sit it like that because it's not pressing on any tubes or anything. Then I'll get rid of the head shell for now, put it over here. And I'll pick this up by the sides of the chassis and sit it there. Okay, we're back. So I've flipped it over. I put a single speaker cable to one of the sides of this cabinet, which is 8 ohms. I tested it with my multimeter to ensure that it is 8 ohms. I will now switch this. That'll be good on me. And I got this long, small flathead, and that's what I'm going to use to adjust the bias. I also have a wooden chopstick. If you're going to go poking around, you know, inside of an amp. If you're ever having trouble and you're suspecting maybe a loose connection or a bad solder joint or something like that, you would want to use something like this. You don't use a screwdriver that'll conduct. You use something wood, and these are just cheap chopsticks, but I'm going to use them to point. But anyway, so we will plug the speaker in, and before I put power in, so what you'll do is, this is a 100-watt amp. So there's 4 power tubes. Each one of these EL34s, and that's what they are, yep. EL34s is 25 watts. So that goes into our formula that we're gonna use in just a little while. So this right here, I bought from Eurotubes. They have videos and stuff on how to use it and everything. This is, back when I bought it, it was $100, but it's money well spent as far as I'm concerned, because it makes it super easy to do. You just plug it in, you know, and you don't have to put your multimeter leads into the amp. So what you do is you just take your spring off, and you pull your tube out, and then you line this up there. So you plug that up to that, and then you plug it down into that. It'll only go one way because there's a little locator tab. That, and I'll just leave the retainer, spring retainer like that. Then I flip this over like that, and I mean, leaning it like this, I mean, they make these cradle kind of things, and sometimes I'll put some pieces of wood under here, and you know, I think I am going to do that. You know, I'll do like this kind of thing. If it'll sit there, no, not you. That's better. I'm gonna do it like this so y'all can see it. So at this point, we've got this plugged up to the first tube. We've got the speaker jack plugged into the cabinet. All the knobs on the front are all the way down. I just turn everything down because we're just doing idle current. This is what we're trying to find. This amp at just while it idles. You know, it's not powered up making a lot of noise. It's down. This is that master volume that I put into this. This I will leave all the way up, because all the way up on this leaves the amp in its stock state, you know. So this you want this all the way up, but most of this kind of amp wouldn't even have this. So at this point, I will put the power in, and I will flip the power on. And now I'm going to do standby. So this will continue to change. And it'll go up and down and up and down, and you can do your calculations. So I will mention at this point, all my stuff over here on my studio side of things is plugged into this Monster Power that has a voltmeter on the front of it. I also have this Furman rack thing. I don't know if you can see that in the shot that you're in now. No, it's a little above. But the Monster Power one, I've had it for years. It always reads about 3 volts more than the Furman. I have a Monster Power also in the next room over there with my home theater stuff, and it always reads the same as this Monster one. And I know that the Monster Power one is more accurate than this Furman one because I've tested it with my multimeter like straight out of the wall. And right out of the wall to the multimeter measures what these Monster Powers say. The Furman is not accurate. And so what I would advise, you know, when you're setting your bias, you would really, ideally, you would want the volts coming out of your house wall to be as high as they can. My Monster Power one says 119 right now. It was saying 120, 121 earlier. I really wish it would kind of go back to that. But you know, if you set your amp really hot and your voltage at that time was like 115, 116, and you set it at a strict 70%, then later, if you plugged in somewhere and it was 121, 122, your bias would be hotter than 70%, you know, so you'd be running your tubes hot. So, and I mean, the disadvantage of that is just wearing out your tubes early. The formula is what a lot of people use. Now, the people are going to argue with this, and the people who will say you should set the bias with a scope. That's fine if you know how to do that. This is better for like people who don't know how to do that or don't have a scope. The formula works fine. I've been doing it for years like this. I've never had any problems. Now, to get it perfect, yeah, the scope and doing it like that, but the formula gets it close. And if you're worried about it, just set it a little cooler than 70%. I did a friend of mine's amp, J&P, and he actually requested, he said he wanted it was either 60 or 65%. He requested that I do it at that. So I did it to that according to this. So my voltage on the Monster is saying 119 right now. So 25 watt tube divided by, what is it now, 441 times 0.7, 70%, 39.6. So see, this can go up. Now, that little black, here I'm gonna poke with this. That little black pot right there, that's your bias pot. So you wanna get a screwdriver, put it in there, don't touch anything else, just that. And we can turn this up, see? Okay, so like I said, I can turn that up to 39.6, 39.7 even. But yeah, this can go up, see? So I'm gonna turn it up. I'm gonna get it up to 39, let's see. And it's very, very finicky. It's like the tiniest of movements. There you go. So see, now boosting that up to 39, it's 0.8 now. This went down, so we can do the calculation again. 25 watt divided by 438 equals times 0.7, 70%. 39.9. Now it's gone down even more. So that's what I do. This is how I do it, because it's constantly changing. But I'm going to leave that at that, because 39.5, and that's good. Okay. And just kind of watch these numbers, and I kind of watch it a little bit. So what I will do at this point, I will just like walk away and go do something else and just let this thing sit here and let those tubes cook. And this may jump around and change. I mean, I prefer a hot bias. And I mean, if you go a couple of ticks hot, I mean, you're not going to destroy your tubes right away. That's the disadvantage of running really, really hot biases, is just you decrease your tube life. So if you set it lower, it'll make your tubes last longer. Some people prefer the sound of the amp with the bias a little cooler. For my style of playing and for how I want an amp to run, you know, I want it hot. Now, what I'll do, like I said, I'll walk away from this and just let it do that, which I'm going to do. And once you do this for a while, and that is holding at the numbers you want, and it's been going a while, and do this on a day where you have time. I don't rush this. I do it on a day where I've got all day and I can go do, I got other things to do maybe, and I'll let that just sit there and burn like that for a while. And once I see that that's where it's going to kind of hold, I'll shut the whole amp off. I'll flip it back over. I'll put that bias probe on the next tube and then repeat this process. And here's what's important about that. So we're testing the second one, power tube. If I turn it on, because all four of these tubes, it's a matched set, but even in matched sets, they're never perfectly the same. These are all going to burn at different hotnesses, so to speak. So if I put it on tube number 2, and my numbers here on this meter are showing that the bias is a little too hot, right? It's a little more than 70%, more than I want, right? I'll turn the bias down to get that tube to where we want it, right? Which will lower it for tube number 1, but that's okay. But if I was to go to tube number 2 and do all this again, and it's a little bit lower than tube number 1, the number's a little bit lower, not quite a full 70%, then just leave it alone. You know what I mean? All you're trying to do is make sure you're testing all 4 tubes with this, one at a time. So on a 100 watt head, you're gonna do this 4 times. On a 50 watt head, you're gonna do it twice. So a 50 watt head's a lot easier. But you want the hottest tube that you have in the set to be at the maximum amount of dissipation that you want, which is the 70%. The other ones, if they're lower, that's okay. And you know, if you buy your tubes from a reputable company, and they're matching them, you pay to have them matched, which you want to do. You want a matched set. They're going to be close. They get them where they're as close as they can possibly get them, but they won't be the same. These 4 tubes will not be the same. So just set it where the hottest tube you have is at 70%, and then the other ones will fall slightly below it, and that's okay. But if you set one of your colder tubes up to the 70%, then your hotter tube is going to be, 70 something and like too much. So anyway, I hope I explained that well. But anyway, like I said, I'm gonna let this sit here and do this, and then I'm gonna go to the second one. But I'm not gonna show all 4 of these because it'll make the video go super long. And like I said, I spend a lot of time. I'll just let it sit here and I'll go do some other stuff. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna test the other 4, and then we'll be back. I was going to just mention real quick too, while I'm biasing these other tubes, and yes, I'm that much of a stickler. I put stickers of the dates. So see, January of 2018 is when I replaced those, and I have stickers just like that on the big caps too. But I remember that this is your bias pot. See, so I'm gonna get you maybe a close up, but you put a flathead screwdriver in that and turn it, and it's very sensitive. But I had to replace that too back when I did all the work to the amp, because I was having trouble with it. You know, when I'd go to adjust it, it was all over the place. And I mean, this thing had fire damage, smoke damage. So I changed it, and that fixed that. But this resistor right here, this one, is your bias resistor. In many of the Marshalls I've owned, when I go to bias, set the bias on the tubes, I can jack this thing all the way up as high as it'll go, and I can't get the bias as hot as I need it. That has happened to me on brand new amps, you know, like the reissues and everything. And if that is the case and you need to get that bias hotter, you got to change that resistor, which is not fun. You got to flip this board upside down. You got to take everything apart and flip the board upside down, desolder from the back. So yeah, I've had to do that with a bunch of them. But I forget the values of them. But I mean, from the factory, these manufacturers you know, they bias these things cold, you know, pretty cool, because they don't want to over bias them and, you know, cause them to blow tubes or have problems and any of that. So they're generally kind of cool from the factory. But most Marshalls that I've owned, the 100-watt plexi I had and the reissues I had to change that resistor. But on this one, I had to change that. I had to change the bias pot, these caps. I mean, and I forget both of those, both jacks. Oh, it was so long ago, I can't remember. There's my master volume. That cap, those caps, you know, all this stuff, all the sockets, the speaker jacks. Yeah, a bunch of stuff. Anyway. So the way it went, I did all the other tubes, the other three that you didn't see, went down the line, and first tube I biased to right at 70%. The third tube was the hottest tube. I did the first one and the second one. When I got to the third one, which would be V6, but the third one in the row of, when I was testing them. The third one, when I fired up the amp, it was like way over 70. Well, not way over, but you know, I'd had it at like 39 point something milliamps, and it was at like 41, 42. So the third one was the hottest one. So I backed it down to where it was like perfectly at 70%, which would take the first two and make them be a little lower than 70, and that's fine. Then when I went to the fourth one, it was significantly lower than the third one. Like it was at like 37 milliamps, which again is fine. So 70 is the standard. Some people like less. Some people do it by ear. Some people don't even use a meter or a scope or anything. They do it by ear. I don't trust my ear that much. And then again, the scope, that's for real pros. They do it and they watch the scope and they do it by the levels, and I have great respect for that. But for those of us who don't have one and don't really know how to do that, this one works fine. You can get it in the neighborhood. And like I said, I was just watching my voltage on my power center down here, and it kind of stayed steady. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.